It is 6 o'clock. Everyone's ready. All right. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order as extended on June 15, 2021 with the governor's signing of Senate Bill number 247.5, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, this meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information in the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found below. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the City of Easthampton website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Should an interruption occur in which the meeting ends abruptly, the meeting will not be restarted and all agenda items will be automatically continued to the next scheduled meeting. It is 6:01 and I will now call to order the February 14th, 2022 meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission. Are there any public concerns or non-agenda items?
I haven't received any, and I'd like to make a request to take an item out of order. Is item C, I believe, 5C. Hold on.
A motion to take 5C out of order.
Is there a second?
A second.
All those in favor, roll call vote. August?
Aye.
Yusa?
Aye.
Buttrick is absent with notice. Ryan?
Aye.
Whittemore is absent with notice. Cody? Aye. Motion carries. Item 5C, Dean Kuchar, 20 Pine Street, map 150, lot 258. Good evening.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great. Just making sure I did it right. Thank you.
Okay, where are we with this agenda items, Cassie?
Okay, so yeah, where it left off was the commission wasn't sure about, initially there was concern that a violation had occurred with the construction of potentially a new dock. It was determined that the dock is not new. At the very least, the work that was completed recently as part of a home remodel was just the replacement of surface boards. None of the supporting structure that would involve ground disturbance was changed. It's all the existing area. I was able to confirm that at least the dock has been in existence since 2005, potentially could be older than that. There's just not reliable aerial imagery to confirm that. And so the commission wasn't sure, since this dock has been in existence before, what administratively, or I guess in terms of enforcement, is required by the commission, since the dock itself, I don't have any records of it getting permitted.
Okay, so I guess my current way of looking at it is that the redecking of the dock does not constitute an alteration, as an alteration is defined in the Act. And if in the future, so I think the commission is making, if the commission were to make the assertion that this is an unpermitted structure, I think the burden should fall on the commission to support that assertion. So at this point, I think, legally we can fall back on the assumption that it's a legally and lawfully located structure that potentially predates the Wetlands Protection Act, but at the very least at this time, the actions there did not meet the criteria of an alteration and therefore should not be considered a violation. That's how my brain worked through that one, with that subsequent information about the nature and extent of what occurred. Is there, how do folks feel about that?
I think that makes sense.
Okay, so is there any further discussion? Are we, I was not at the previous meeting.
My understanding is that this is basically what we just needed to confirm. We weren't able to get to this definitive conclusion at the last meeting, so there's no other actions necessary Dean, I can send you a letter that kind of summarizes this, just to kind of close it out, and have something in our records that say like, this was the summary of the commission's review. But otherwise, I think it should be all set. I don't think there's anything else that needs to happen.
No, and I think we can take this off future agendas.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right. I appreciate that, Cassie. Thank you all. And have a good night.
Thank you.
As well. Thank you. Okay, back onto agenda order. Public hearings and meetings. Public hearing continued from January 24th, 2021. Notice of intent filed by Lathrop Community Inc. at 100 Bassett Brook Drive, map 104, lot 2, for improvements to existing trail network, Mass DEP file number 151315.
Yep, so they're going to continue again. I haven't heard, if they're going to come back. The plan right now is that we're going to hear from them in the spring, but I haven't gotten confirmation of when that was. That was something that Julie had asked at a previous meeting, if we could continue until that point in the spring, but they weren't able to nail it down. So we're just going to keep continuing unless something changes, if that's all right.
Before we do we know, or can we add to future agendas the date that this was initially filed, just as a point of reference? I know we've kind of used that kept an eye on that in the past on other items that exceeded the 2-year mark.
Yes, so I can definitely add that to future agendas.
Okay, great. Is there a motion to continue to February 28th, 2022 at 6 p.m.?
Motion to, go ahead.
Motion to continue to February 28th at 6 p.m.
I'll second.
All those in favor, roll call vote. August?
Aye.
Yusa?
Aye.
Buttrick is absent with notice. Ryan?
Aye.
Whittemore is absent with notice. Cody, aye. Motion carries. Okay. We have no requests for certificates of compliance. Are there any other topics of discussion relative to enforcement action items A, B, or D?
No. D, we're going to revisit that in April.
Okay. Are there any open space updates to discuss?
No.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Okay. Sorry.
All right.
Russell from the Orchard called me on Sunday, asked if I could stop up and look at the mowing, because he wanted us to go down there and just check it out. And so we walked around a little bit, and he has some ideas about making some trails through there, or putting picnic tables in there or something like that. But he was asking if there was an APR on the property. And I don't remember that there is one.
I can look that up.
Yeah, I was looking into this recently. I was looking into all the properties that had either a CR or an APR, but I can't remember for this one. This one might have a CR.
Yeah, it might have a CR.
But that's, and the language of that would still matter. So Echodale Farm is in the green. I mean, it's, ooh. Oh, this is interesting. Okay. Sorry, I'm playing with transparencies, and okay. So if I'm staying within the Echodale parcel and not going into the town farm parcel, it's, I guess, Cassie, you might have to do a little more research on your end. The DEP, or the Mass GIS data layer, only indicates that it is permanently protected.
Okay.
But it doesn't say, hold on. The primary purpose is C. I just want to do a compare contrast. Okay, so as contrasted with the adjacent town farm parcel, which is also permanently protected, it actually lists APR specifically, and that the primary purpose is listed as A for, I'm assuming, agriculture. So the Echodale Farm parcel does not list DAR or APR or any of those similar designations. So it'd be good, as we're actively engaged in improvements and potential trails and other amenities, if we understood or had a refresher on the specific language.
Okay. Yeah, his concern was that maybe if there was APR on it, we'd be limited on what we could do as far as educational things or trails or picnic tables or things like that. So he's got some ideas. He wants to think about it a little bit more and get back to us. So
great.
I'll do a little research myself, see if I can find if there's specifically a CR or an APR on it. And then if there's like the language, there. And so.
It was acquired with self-help grants or a self-help grant, Cassie, I believe. So there are restrictions on change in use or uses outside what was defined when it was acquired, I'm guessing. That would, so we want to be mindful of Article 97.
Okay, I'll look in that too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great.
Cool.
So I'm assuming there are no Lathrop updates because
No.
they continued. Okay. Are there any compliance updates on the open permits?
Yes. So for 99 Mount Tom Ave, this is the algal restoration project.
Cassie,
Yes.
I need to recuse due to conflict of interest on this one.
Okay, noted. So this one, hold on, just taking it out. They had submitted a planting plan which is one of the pre-construction requirements, and they weren't. The commission wasn't able to come to a conclusion of whether or not they wanted to approve the plan yet. They wanted some more time to look at it and maybe additional information. They were able to submit another document which kind of maps out where each type of planting is supposed to be, and I can share that on my screen now if you'd all like to see.
Okay. So just to clarify, this is item Q. City of Easthampton, 99 Mount Tom Avenue,
Yes.
DEP file number 151313.
Yes, exactly. Okay, let's see here. All right, I'm going to share my screen. So, So this is the area of the planting, and he's kind of explained which type for each, there's different degrees of wetness and upland and sloped areas and shaded areas. This kind of more generally says what kind, but so like for here, restore with tubulings and wetland seed mix. Tubulings is down here for the bioengineered slope in the buffer areas. Oh, this is in the wetland area. So it would include sensitive fern and skunk cabbage is going to be included here as an example, and over here.
Okay. As opposed to the adjacent area, which is the buffer?
And that will include down here, striped maple, sensitive fern, ostrich fern.
Okay.
And that would be over here as well.
Okay.
And then these last two categories, upland slope in the buffer, red maples and dogwoods for this upper slope, and the lower slope will be, that's upland seed mix, buffer.
I think it's the sensitive fern skunk cabbage one.
Yeah, yep, this one again, sorry, yeah.
No, that's fine.
And then all the other regular upland is these various species right here, and then wetland seed mix is jewelweed.
Okay.
And the buffer seed mix is much more varied.
Roadside upland. Okay. Can you zoom into the plan view a little bit?
Oh,
that's fine.
jumping around.
That was a good zoom level. Okay. So please refresh my memory here. So I see wetland flag symbols. I think I see one for A117 at the top of
Oh.
no,
Oh,
on the west side of the bank. The wetland restoration area at the toe of the slope.
Mm-hmm.
If you go up a little bit more.
Oh, yes.
So A117 is the last flag point I can see in this view.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yep, right here.
So the tubulings and buffer restoration table applies to the area that wasn't mapped as a vegetated wetland. Is that correct?
Tubulings and buffer seed mix? Yes.
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 So, and then if you go back to the table there, just out of curiosity.
Tubulings and buffer.
Okay. Okay. I mean, these are all native species, really. So I think as long as they're clear on it, and it's clear that as part of a certificate of compliance, I think the commission should expect to see some sort of documentation of quantities installed.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And be alerted to any substitutions prior to installation.
Yep, I can definitely do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Does anyone else have any comments, or did you see this last time and I'm seeing this for the first time tonight?
I didn't see it last time, I don't believe.
This is new for this one. Before it was just a written list.
Okay.
Okay, awesome. So then you can tell them that they can go ahead with this and then make a note if there's any substitutions and that we want the quantities for the certificate of compliance.
Yes.
All right. The next thing was compliance updates.
Mhm.
It's for 50 Florence Road, this solar project. And then just wanted to finalize the review for the invasive species plan, which I think we may be able to do, and I don't know if it's happened officially. Just it kept getting carried on to next meetings as we had other more busier agendas previously. And I will note, Deb August, do you plan to recuse yourself for this item? Okay. Let me get a summary of what was asked for last time. So previously, the commission had asked for notification of the commission within 48 hours before herbicide application, and that they should submit a treatment schedule once that's determined. Also, the commission wanted the added note that large black locust trees should not be removed. That has been added in the latest version of the plan. They don't plan to remove any black locust trees over a 10-inch DBH. And then there was a request for clarification on knotweed disposal, just because I think that if I remember correctly, there were 2 locations in the plan that had conflicting instructions of what to do with the knotweed. So I think, did anyone have any other questions about it or things that they didn't feel like were right in the invasive plan?
Anyone? Yes. Yes.
Deborah August, speaking as public. In the initial treatment recommendations, which is on page 11, they break down the invasive plants, and invasive A through C has Japanese knotweed, but then also IVG has Japanese knotweed mixed in with reed canary grass. And it says invasive areas E, G, and H shall be cut and treated with an herbicide. It's the exact same thing they've been saying from the beginning. So I didn't know if they could clarify that area G that has Japanese knotweed will also be bagged and disposed of. It's a separate area, but there is Japanese knotweed mixed in. It's just saying that they're going to cut it and treat with herbicide. So I didn't see it anywhere else in the plan where they said that the area G would be treated the same as A through C.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Cassie, can you request that further clarification?
Yes,
And
definitely.
make it clear that the commission expects that all areas exhibiting Japanese knotweed or supporting Japanese knotweed be bagged and removed from the site, regardless of how they were previously documented. If it's observed, they need to treat it that way.
Yes, okay. Yeah, that sounds good. I can definitely do that. Okay. Does anyone have any other notes about the invasive plan? Great. Then I will get him to make those changes. That is it for compliance updates. The next is just general business meeting minutes, January 24th.
We do not have the right quorum.
Oh, yeah. Okay, moving on. Let's see, tree cutting policy. So I can start with, I got comments from Dan Buttrick. Pull those up. So let's see. The first comment was, and just like trying to pick up where we left off, is we're still reviewing this as a policy, trying to determine if there's any other changes we want to make. The purpose of the policy is to give like an expedited process for tree removal in the event that the tree is proven to be hazardous, which is something that's been adopted in a number of other communities. So his Commissioner Buttrick's comments were, first, that in several places we say cutting/alteration. I'm not sure what the word alteration is intended to mean. My understanding of that wording, because before it was just cutting. It started out as removal, and we thought that was inappropriate because the whole tree might not necessarily need to be removed to reduce the hazard. So we said just cutting. I believe Commissioner Whittemore was concerned that wouldn't be clear enough, and that it should say alteration also. I think he was concerned about people not understanding, but I can kind of see what Commissioner Buttrick is saying, that it kind of makes it more confusing potentially. So I'm happy with just making it cutting, or I tried to make it so everywhere we had cutting, it now says cutting/alteration.
Folks, based on the last meeting's discussion, the draft minutes don't have a whole lot to say on the topic.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, we haven't talked about it for a while in detail.
Right. So
I don't feel strongly about it one way or other, but I could see that having just cutting might be interpreted by some people as like cutting down, which is not what we want to imply. Maybe the word we want is trimming, cutting/trimming. But I don't really see alteration as a major confusion point either. So I'm also fine with it as it is.
what about cutting including but not limited to trimming and/or pruning?
I like that even better. That's excellent.
With enough of a wiggle room and the inclusion
Yeah.
wanted too.
Yeah.
If we, if the goal is to make it, I don't know, translatable across, different people's interpretations, then, one person's idea of cutting versus someone's idea of pruning versus someone's idea of trimming would at least be captured. How's Luna?
She's rooting around in the chair behind me.
Excellent.
Okay, that makes sense to me. I'll make that adjustment. I think it's better to be more clear. Okay, the next comment from Commissioner Buttrick was that my personal view is that maintenance pruning for tree health in buffer zone should be an automatic approval. And I'm not sure how that necessarily comes into play for this, because the main justification for this policy would be that, sometimes people can't go, there's an argument to be made that waiting to go through the hearing process for an RDA could be too slow to deal with a hazard tree that maybe is hanging over your house, or you're really concerned about, or has been, identified by an arborist that it is a hazard. So I don't know. It's true that
that seems more of an implementation than a provision of the policy per se. I'm not sure how other folks interpret that.
I mean, pruning a tree for health, I just wonder how much that would necessarily come up if they're pruning it just to support the tree. I don't know.
Do we have the wiggle room to even make that choice under the regulations, or would that be considered an alteration, which would otherwise require an RDA if we didn't have this policy to make it easier?
I think that's what it would fall under.
So I think it's a moot point in terms of what we like or don't like, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think, the justification for the policy is that you have to do it, there's a hazard, there's a reason that you want this expedited process. Whereas if you just want to do alteration for the health of the tree, you really should probably be getting an RDA for that, because you have plenty of time. Okay, the next comment was, in one place we write stumps within 50 feet in any wetland resource area shall not be removed. So there's a typo there of an extra word. Yes.
Yeah, this is only a buffer zone policy. So yeah, the second, the in and of itself should probably come out.
Okay. Yep. Well, so that kind of speaks to his next part. So he says, but more importantly to me, and I can't figure out how to find in the document, so I can't confirm, I think this is only in reference to stump removal. I would rather prohibit approval for any stump removal under the policy without further application, RDA or NOI, which is consistent with leaving snags in place, or only allow stump removal within existing lawn or landscaped areas with the use of erosion controls, regardless of distance from resource area, to the extent allowed by the WPA. So he's saying we should get rid of stump removal altogether. Or only allow stump removal within existing lawn. Which I kind of tend to agree with.
I agree with it until my mind goes to a scenario, and I don't know if the scenario exists, but if that lawn goes to the limits of maintained lawn go toward the top of a slope that's in the buffer zone, and you start digging out the stump, are you destabilizing the top of that slope? And would we want to keep that minimum setback distance criteria in there to protect the down gradient resource area?
Mhm. I think that's a good point.
So that's an argument then for no stump removal, correct?
I
And
think
just
that's the
clarify.
argument.
Okay.
Yeah, because Dan had put in the caveat that you can do stump removal in landscaped areas, but some landscaped areas might be at the, top of this slope that is right above a wetland.
Right.
And the spirit of this was that the activities did not include ground disturbance. And you start getting into ground disturbance and it has more potential to impact down gradient resource areas. So
Maybe no stump removal at all. Because I can't even see how a stump would be a hazard
right.
to anything anyways.
Right. If we get back to the spirit of this, which was to allow for expedited review and approval of hazardous situations, then what is a stump going to do?
Okay. Okay, so I'll get that out of there. I think that makes sense. And if they want to remove the stumps, then they can come for an RDA. That was the end of Dan's comments. I will say, I think earlier I thought potentially you had said, Melissa, that this is a buffer zone only policy, and it's not. It's
Buffer zone and riverfront?
Yep, and
yeah. Sorry, the two kind of get lumped together in terms of exempt activities or alternate reviews, sorry.
But this is also for BBW. So it needs to be, just, if you have the idea again is if it's a hazard, hanging
So
over.
I would, right, and I think that still applies and that's fair. And then I more stringently oppose the inclusion of stump removal. I think it should be excluded altogether. I don't think you should be disturbing the ground surface within a BVW without a full review.
Okay. Cool. I can make that change.
Okay.
Okay, so one of the other questions from a previous meeting was, what is the administrative process for actually, putting the policy in place? Is it just the commission just votes on it and I'll post on the website, or is there more involved to it? And my understanding is you kind of have two options. One, we can just, commission can vote on it and then we'll have it on the website and I'll know to, follow this policy when people reach out to me about it. But another way to do it would be to establish rules and regulations and then have this be part of it. But it would be a lot more involved. It'd take me more time to draft that and go from there.
Two questions, at least. Slash comments. Can we establish rules and regulations without a bylaw?
My understanding is that we can. There's a part of the city ordinances that says that, each board and commission will, can establish their rules and regulations.
Okay. And I would suggest that we just vote and adopt this. And if we are able to come together on rules and regs that are more comprehensive in the future, we could roll this into those.
Okay.
But that for the time being, if the goal is to provide an expedited review for public safety, then delaying this further isn't in that spirit.
Agreed.
I think that's a good point.
So are we going to vote this evening, or do we want to get the final revised version?
I'm comfortable voting if others are.
My wife had a couple of comments. And under the guiding principles, section B, where it says that whether the work shall happen when the ground is frozen or during a dry period, she wanted to add or the use of mats or pads.
I would suggest we also consider then that the use of mats or pads does not entail additional vegetation removal
Okay.
for their installation, but I think she's got a fine point there.
Okay, so if it's not a dry or frozen period, you can use mats and pads as long as there isn't going to be any additional vegetation removal required.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay.
And then only on the document itself where the person signs, have them print their name also,
Okay,
just because it's on most of our regular other documents anyway, so.
that makes sense.
And you would know it was me if you saw me signing it.
That is not unique to you though, Jay.
I know.
Okay, cool. No, I can definitely do that.
Okay, great. So is there a motion to accept the commission's tree removal policy as discussed during this meeting?
Motion to accept the commission's tree removal policy with the final edits as discussed during this meeting.
I'll second.
All those in favor, roll call vote. August.
Aye.
Yusa.
Aye.
Buttrick, absent with notice. Ryan.
Aye.
Whittemore, absent with notice. Cody, aye. Motion carries. Yay.
Yay. Cool. I'll send out the final version to everyone as soon as I have it.
Excellent. And just before we go, unless someone else has something they want to bring up, I guess Cassie, are you aware that the construction general permit for Massachusetts and New Hampshire is the 2022 version goes into effect February 17th?
Oh, I think I did hear about that.
And that current or open SWIPs permits under the existing, the 2017 CGP have 90 days to recertify themselves and update their SWIPs accordingly. And that by February 17th, 2023, one of the changes is the requirement that all SWIP inspectors have certain EPA or non-EPA approved training certifications. So, it takes some discretion away from who the approved SWIP inspector can be. So I think that's a positive. There are a series of, EPA is supposed to be coming out with their own training this summer, but there are other certifications that already exist that are listed on EPA's website.
Okay.
But that provision has a year's grace to it. So, but the 90 days applies to anything that isn't any notification that hasn't been terminated. So I would think at least a handful of the permits that we have open before us would fall into that category. Mountain View School, 50 Florence Road. I don't know what else you have been seeing SWIP reports for, but just to keep that in mind. And if that was a part of the approval with stormwater, that the SWIP would be the construction period pollution prevention plan, then it is certainly within the commission's purview to inquire and require.
Okay. I had it, this is related, but not exactly the same thing. I had a question about just future projects regarding SWIP reporting and reporting generally. One of the things that they do in Bernardston is that they have the project hire a third party of the commission's choosing to do the reporting. And so they set up a 53G account and the project puts money in the 53G and the commission chooses a third party to do the reporting and we pay them through that. Is that something that you guys think would make sense to do in the future? Or is that too burdensome, or I don't know?
I know that has certainly been the case on larger projects that I've been involved with, where, that the use of the role of a third-party environmental monitor is that that independence, that absence of conflict of interest potentially. So I guess I think it would be wise to consider scale and scope. I don't know that that's necessarily, I don't know. I'm not sure if that's how that would play out across the board, and if it would be useful or not useful.
Yeah, I mean, that was my thought. I was like, I don't think it's appropriate or necessary for every single project. Maybe bigger ones, I guess, and it's not really urgent to figure it out right now. I was just thinking about it because of what you just brought up, just because we don't have any like projects, NOIs that we would be drafting in order conditions for right now. So I don't know, maybe it's just a thought to put out there.
Yeah, I think it would be a useful tool. But I think we would need to establish criteria for when it was implemented versus not implemented, to maintain some fairness and transparency.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay.
I don't know. How do other folks feel about that?
It seems like it may be less important given the new requirements for certified inspectors.
Mm-hmm.
It also strikes me as potentially a little bit challenging on our particular commission because we have so many relationships with employers and other conflicts of interest that us choosing an inspection firm might get tricky.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's certainly plenty out there that none of us do work with or for, but it just seems like it's cleaner if we are not making that recommendation or choice.
No,
I think that's a really good point. Okay. All right, cool. Yeah, sorry to kind of derail with that.
no, it was related.
Okay, cool.
Worth noting.
Well,
Anything else?
the last thing is the conflict of interest training. It's that time of year again. So in my first email about this meeting, I attached on there the document. It's page 11. Read it, and then on page 11, you just sign that part and send it back to me.
Cassie, it also said we can just send you an email, right?
Yes,
Okay.
You can also do that. Sorry, I forgot about that. And Commissioner August, I got yours. I got it in the mail today. So I've got that. So, but if you guys want to email me or send it over, however, any way is good. Or you can drop it off. I'm here every day except for Friday. So, oh, I just got Julie's. Well done.
Okay. Well, on that note, anything else, or are we?
Motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
All those in favor, roll call vote. August.
Aye.
Fusa.
Aye.
Buttrick absent with notice. Ryan.
Aye.
Whittemore absent with notice. Cody, aye. Motion carries at 6:44.
Ooh.
Well done, everyone.